Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. Is this just a clip like this?
Yeah, that's it, man.
This is very, this wireless thing is very fancy.
It's amazing.
This is very fancy.
Little mic test. You guys can hear it. Switch to the PowerPoint.
I'm assuming if they could hear them, they can hear me.
Yeah.
Zoom, are you good? I'll take the silence as a yes. That's great.
It's all good. We can
We're
hear.
good. We're
Awesome.
good.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
We can hear you.
Well, that's exciting.
All right, I appreciate you.
I'm sorry for that in advance.
Let me go ahead and put your presentation mode. Figure that out.
We're a tech company.
You see that guy? Look at that. Look at that.
This is
You get
exciting.
a preview of what's next over here.
It's very fancy. I'm overwhelmed with your talent. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Hey, I appreciate you guys being here today and allowing me to come and take some of your time. And I'm here to serve and provide value. That's the only reason I'm here. So I want to tell you, as we go through this, the class I'm going to go through before we talk about my big insane life is normally like a 90-minute class. So I'm going to go a little bit fast. And I would still encourage you to stop and ask a question if you have one, because if you've got the question, half the other room has got it, and yet they might not speak up and you will. So that's my contact information, very groundbreaking. There you go. So that is me. So I own an expansion team. We're actually based out of the Bonita Springs Market Center, and yet I live up in Tampa now. We did do about 60 million last year at 206 units. And I'll tell you more about my story. In 2014, I sold 0 units and was broke. So we built that in a fairly quick amount of time, and we'll talk more about that later. So we're going to talk about listings today because, I mean, is it just me? Is anybody else like a little bit exhausted with this market? Yeah, a little bit. Okay, cool. So I want to talk about listings, and some of this you're going to be like, oh, we've heard it before. We know listings leads leverage and all this stuff, and I appreciate that. I think that we need to hear it more than once, or else we'd be taking lots of listings. Like if we had it completely ingrained in that brain of ours, then we'd be taking more. So why would you even take them? I like to start at the beginning of things and not somewhere in the middle. So why are you taking listings? You're buying back your time. Who in here says on a regular basis, oh, wish I had more time, or I'm running behind, or it's my favorite, I have too much on my plate. Oh, they make different plates, guys. Like, so you buy back your time. So this is from a NAR study, by the way, the statistic. So like they tracked agents and how long it takes from hello, nice to meet you, Mr. Seller, and hello, nice to meet you, Mr. Buyer, and closing. And you can close a listing, you can close 4 listings, excuse me, in the amount of time that it would take you to serve 1 buyer. And this survey is 2 years old. So I would venture to bet that that's in the same time that you would serve 8 buyers. Because are you all getting the first offer accepted on the first property you show every time? Okay, cool, me neither. So you are buying back your time, and that is the most precious commodity that we have. And that is something we'll talk about later because, woo, time. You have a much higher probability of getting paid with a listing. Who here has had days in the past couple of years where they feel like they're working as a volunteer worker? You don't have to do that to yourself. And look, I get it. I bet you are all so good and you get buyer broker signed, and I'm so proud of you. That still doesn't mean that your buyers are going to buy. Some of them get priced out of the market. Some of them sign that thing and cheat on you anyways. Some of them go to another market altogether because they just decided that this area is too expensive, because I know your average price is about $3.5 million. So now we don't want to like deter buyers. And when you have a listing and you properly market it and utilize it, then don't you attract more buyers? So now, cool, you're still getting your buyers, because I know you really do love secretly to show houses, just not like 32,000 to each buyer. So now you're still getting buyers without having to spend time on getting them, because your listing is bringing them to you. Well, you get to work if you choose a smaller area. Do I have any farming agents in the room? Okay, y'all are so smart. There is an agent up in my office in Tampa who literally runs she's in like a planned community. And she doesn't, I mean, she will refer something out that is 10 minutes away because she can, because she gets all of the listings in her neighborhood. And the truth of the matter is that stronghold did not take that long. She was very purposeful. She was very consistent. And honestly, I mean, I think she had full market share within about 4 years of her first mailer. So that's another option, is that you can work a smaller area, because when you get a buyer, especially in Florida, remember, I started my Florida business in the Fort Myers, Bonita, Naples area. Yeah, they come here and they're also looking in 25 other cities in the state. And so when you have listings, you can control the area that you're working. Now, here's where I want you to think a little differently. And I say this in my bold rooms as well, like, do me a favor and just humor me for the next 90 minutes or so and listen from here instead of here. Like, I know that we all know everything and we're all stuck in our ways and I'm right there with you. So there's no judgment in that, but like, let's let go and release for a little bit and just listen with an open mind. Who here in the past, especially 6 months to a year, has said, oh, there's just no listings? Don't lie. Don't lie. I have 6 kids. I know when someone's lying. Now, and yet last year was the highest number of sales in this country since 2006. Now, every time a buyer closes, what's on the other end of that transaction? Oh, okay, that's cute. So we had way more listings in this current market than we've had in over a decade. The way that you look at things matters. So if you get stuck and if you're over at the water cooler and you're talking to your friends and you're talking about how, oh, I just can't get a listing, there's no listings, that is going to keep showing up in your life like clockwork. And yet there are so many listings out there. And yeah, every third person in this state is a realtor and 95% of them don't know what they're doing. So don't get stuck in that story either. It does you no good. There is plenty of business out there for you. Look, I did that on the first try. That's so exciting. All right, so how are you going to get your listings, right? Because here's the thing. I trust that at the end of this, maybe at least you'll walk out thinking, okay, there is more listing opportunity than I thought out there. Okay, that's great. The number one thing, like if you're like, look, I am slammed, and I want one thing that I can implement to go get more business. You're going to pull open your database. I'm sure it's super organized and in a like command or something. I'm sure it's not just in your back pocket. And you're going to pull out your database and you're going to reach out to every human being that you know, whether you sold them their house or not, who owns a home. And you're going to have a human conversation because you're not going to be a creepy robot that's like, hey, it's Hudson. Do you want to sell your house? Like, you're not going to do that because that's gross and we don't do that. We're a relationship-based business. And yet you're going to reach out to these people. You're going to take, let's be honest, unless they are on some wackadoo lot with a custom build in the back of Golden Gate Estates. I used to live here. I know where things are. Like, you can pull comps for a house 2-3 minutes. Like, if it is in a planned neighborhood, you know exactly what it's worth within a very small range, especially in this market. So you're going to take like 3 minutes a person, you're going to pull up some information and you're going to call them and you're going to have a normal conversation, a care conversation. How are you? How are the kids? How's work? All the things. Hey, you know what? I really consider myself your real estate, your real estate information source. And I wanted to let you know that your home is worth X amount of dollars, whatever it is in the current market. And then you're going to stop talking. You did a really good job of it there. So no one was actually talking. That's a joke. You're going to just tell them the value of their home and you are going to let the information do the heavy lifting. Do you think that, because I know who in here struggles with calling their database, this is a safe space. Thank you. 3 people, honest. Okay, great. Is anyone going to be offended by you providing the same valuable information that they were probably going to look up on Zillow in the next week anyways, because people are obsessed with their home? Anybody? No. And if you think you're going to be offended, you're wrong. Now, if you say, hey, your house is worth $700,000, can I come list it? That's different. That commission breath is coming off of you and it's creepy. You're just telling them what their house is worth. Here's the situation that you have to remember because you're immersed in this business. Does everybody who doesn't live under a rock know that the real estate market's insane right now? Yes. Does everybody know what that actually means? No, you do. They don't. You have so many people in your world that probably have a house that they think is worth $600,000 and it's worth I have to keep inflating my numbers because of where I am. And it's really worth $800,000 or $750,000. And you sharing that knowledge creates a whole new line of thinking for them. So if you want listings right now and you're like, I can only retain one more thing, start giving market analysis to literally everybody that you know that owns a home within your service area. And just see where it goes. And don't do 2 of them and nobody says, hey, I want to sell, or hey, I want to pull some money out and buy an investment, and be like, this doesn't work. Just do it. What a great thing to do to work through your database and get one big contact in and a value add. And again, they are going to Zillow and looking for the same information. So give them the real stuff. All right. Who here has buyers that haven't found a home yet? Cool. Why aren't you finding them? Why aren't you finding the house? Y'all, if all you're doing is using the MLS, like, I love you. I don't mean this to sound really mean and harsh, except it is. You're not doing your job. Like, any trained animal could open up the MLS and start clicking. So where are you doing to find those listings? And in fact, in my experience, 9 times out of 10, when you market to an area and they say, hey, actually, I would sell. What is your buyer interested in? They don't have what your buyer wants. And yet, what did that person tell you by reaching out at all? They're interested in selling. And now they don't want showings. They don't want a lot of hassle. Well, you can sell their house in 3.5 hours in this market. So now you have a listing conversation. So we're going to look for homes for our buyers. Geographic farming, we already kind of talked about that. And I'm going to pair it up with door knocking. Now, don't faint on me, because I know Naples is not full of door knockers. And you want to get a listing, you go hustle door to door, old school style, and you would be amazed how people respect you. Now, don't do it in the super fancy neighborhoods where they're going to haul you away. And yet there are places where you could door knock. Now, if you don't want to door knock, or you live in a neighborhood where you can't, there are still farming advantages. I'm not here to give a full farming class. I'm going to give you my like miniature one, right? Cool. If you want to take over in a farm, pick one that is a size where you can afford to mail to them every 3 weeks, and just do that. And make sure that you do not need income from it, that you can survive without income from that expenditure for about a year. Now, it might come quicker. Here's my point. Y'all live in neighborhoods. Who in here gets mailers from other realtors? Does anybody send you something in the mail more than once a month? Cool, so be that person. Because the great news about that is that you're just gaining mind share, so it's not cognizant. Like, the people getting your mail don't understand. And they'll never know that you're mailing 3 times or every 3 weeks as opposed to once a month. And yet you will be even the best mailer, the best farming agents when you do that. Financially, unless you have a 10,000 person farm, not even going to cost you that much more. They won't be annoyed. It's not like you're sending it every 3 days and now you're a pain. They just think you're sending it once a month, and yet 6 months from now, you're the name they remember. So there's that. All right. Open houses are also a great way to get listings. Who in here has ever met a seller successfully at an open house? Cool. Did we all forget that? Like, it's not just buyers coming through there. So don't be afraid to go out and do an open house, especially if it's in a neighborhood where you would like more listings. Now, if it's that listing you took just to be nice to your friend and you don't ever want to go there again, well, then I'm not telling you to do the open house there. And yet, if you would like another listing there, do the open house. There's another good time. Door knock. Are y'all getting opportunities from your vendor partners? Is anybody in here awkwardly a vendor partner? No one today, right? Because, okay, good. We can all breathe. My friends, please stop giving all of your business to somebody who is not doing the same, or at least supporting you in some way. Like, if you have a lender that you use that you're giving 15 or 20 deals to for the last 3 or 4 years, and they've never given you anything, other than they should give you great service, and yet they should also be supporting your business. And so if they're giving you leads, more than likely, in fact, if it were me, because don't tell the buyers I don't like them. I don't want them. I don't like them at all. So, hey, you know what, Mr. Vendor Partner, I love working with you. You give such great service to my clients, and I'm running a business. And gosh, I looked it up, and in the past year, you know what, I've sent you like 15 people. So I was just wondering, in the next year or so no pressure, and yet within the next year, would you be willing to send me a referral? They're going to say yes or no. And if they say no, you need to find a new vendor partner for that. I'm telling you right now, because you're giving them a year to get, because I'm not saying be crazy and be like, you know what, give me everybody starting today. That's creepy. Give me one within a year. And then you go a step further and tell them, you know what, look, I'm gonna make it easier on you. I really enjoy focusing on listings myself. So, you know, if you get a buyer lead, you know, if you sent it my way, I'd take great care of it. And yet you can give, I know you got other realtors asking you for business. You give them that. The next seller lead that you get, would you do me a favor and send that to me? So get stuff from your vendor partners. Please stop letting them lead you dry. FSBOs and old expires. Do for sale by owners still happen in your area? Do they have a much higher probability of actually selling as a FSBO right now? Is it painless? No. Are they getting actual top market dollar most of the time? No. If I were, I actively sell, and yet my team does most of the selling. I mainly focus on coaching and teaching and wrangling children. So if I was doing this full time and I needed like a listing every day, I would be looking for new for sale by owners, and I would be offering them a 3-day listing agreement all day long. I know that sounds weird. And yet, so the caveat would be, and it would be in the paperwork, like, hey, you got to let me get pictures done first, and yet 3 active days on market. If we don't have an acceptable offer in 3 days on market, I'll let you go, unless you would choose to move forward. Who in here is selling most of their listings in 3 days or less? Yeah. So why aren't we, so we're not calling FSBOs because we're like, oh, they're going to sell it on their own, and oh, I don't want to fight with them. And yet, what if you just took the difficulty out of it and offered them something different to get their attention? Because nobody else is calling and say, you know what, just give me 3 days, I'll get it done. They're not doing that. Maybe 30, probably not even that. And old expireds, like, they do exist. And now this, so here's my caveat with old expireds. I would say this is probably best for newer agents or agents that aren't super busy, because this is going to be some digging, because most expireds in the past few years have probably relisted and sold at this point. And I guarantee you that there are quite a few that have not. And if their house was on the market for $600,000 2 years ago, and now it's worth $850, and you're the person that lets them know, unless something major has changed in their world, they will jump at the opportunity to at least meet with you. So don't forget it. Now, I would not base my entire listing business solely on FSBOs and expireds, because there's enough of them in this market. And I would not forget the basics, because the basics still work. I would just look at them differently. All right, so there's that. So there's lots of ways to get listings. Okay, so you've got listing leads. Who here, again, safe space, just be real with me. Who here ever struggles with converting to the appointment, or even just asking for the appointment? I know I used to. Anybody? I like the half raises. Those are my favorite. Okay, I get it. It just, hey, no, it's a raise. I'll take it. All right. So let's get the appointment. Now, here's the first step. And I am a smart aleck, and yet I don't really mean this to come off that way. Like, ask for it. Just get in the habit of asking for it. I think we have a very fascinating tendency in this business to not actually ask for the business, because we don't want to come off as salespeople. You have a real estate sales license, just FYI. So you do have to ask for the appointment, and you have to be okay with asking for it more than once. Has anyone here ever read the book Go for No? Yes? Somebody? Okay. It is, first of all, if you've never read it and you struggle with asking for the business or asking for the referral or asking for the appointment, I would go on Amazon and buy it. It's inexpensive and it's a quick read. It's not a long book. It's a quick read. Make no okay. And make sure that you remember that no is not always a no. When you walk into, are there still any department stores left here? Is there like a Nordstrom's in town? I'm sure there's a Nordstrom's in town. Y'all are fancy. All right. So you walk into Nordstrom's, what happens? What do they say? What somebody comes up to you and says, how can I help you? Just looking. Hey, can I help you with anything? No. Yet more than half of the time, did you walk into the store actually looking for something specific? Yeah. We're trained to say no. So you got to be okay with the fact that you might get no the first time you ask that person for an appointment. And then what separates the truly successful agents from the ones that just kind of coast through is being willing to continue that conversation, ask a question or two, and then ask for the appointment again. Ask for it in a different way. So go for no. Ask 5 times before you give up. And honestly, for those of you that you hear that and it sounds terrifying, make it a game. Make it fun. Make it okay for them to say no, and just keep going until you get the appointment or they scream at you. It doesn't matter. Give them a reason to meet for you. Another not amazing habit that we have in this industry is to just give away information like mad. And at a certain point, if they know the price and they know your commission and they know what you do to market it and they know this and they know that, well, then why would they meet with you? So be careful because when you're asking for an appointment, don't they start asking you things like that? Well, how much would it sell for? And what's your commission? And what's the marketing look like? And how would showings work? Like, do you get those questions? Well, when you answer all of them, then you're not going to get the appointment. So you've got to be okay with saying something along the lines of, you know what, that is a great question. And that's exactly why we should meet. Would today at 4 work, or would tomorrow at 3 be better? Oh, I don't know, I'm really busy right now. So can you, yeah, I totally get it. Let's look at another time. Hey, how much do you charge for commission? You know what, that's a great question. It's the first thing that we'll cover when we meet. Is today at 4 better or tomorrow at 5 better? You've got to be okay with not answering the questions and also not being a super weirdo and completely ignoring that they asked it. You have to acknowledge it. You have to make it okay. You got to tell them it was a great question, even though you're like, I don't want to talk about commission. And then you're going to get rid of it and go meet with them in person. And for the record, it's not going to be the first thing you cover, and they won't remember that you said that. So it doesn't really matter because you don't lead with commission. That appointment's not going to go fun. So just don't give them everything for free. Take off the pressure, like press and get the appointment, and also make sure that they understand that you're coming for an informational session. Like, they do not have to sign here, press hard within the first 5 minutes. So take off the pressure, and especially and I encourage you, and I know this company encourages you, and I'm certain that your leadership encourages you to have a relationship-based business. Like, you can help strangers and yet focus on the people that already know you, like you, trust you. Someone in my database wants to sell their house and they're 6 months to a year out, and yet they're planners and they want to meet. I'm totally going to meet with them. I also want to know that going in. I'm not going to really count it in my head as a listing appointment for my conversion. And yet take the pressure off, especially when you're dealing with your database. And y'all need to have some sort of value proposition as to why they would meet with and work with you in the first place. And I don't want for you to get confused by that. It doesn't need to be big and grand and like something straight out of a book. Like, just, there's a lot of realtors. They all know a lot of realtors. Like, I'm sorry, they all know multiple realtors. So why would they work with you? Why would they meet with you? And it could be something is that, you know what, I'm very directed to the point. You're always going to get honesty from me. I mean, that was really all I used for years. I was like, I am honest to a fault, can't sleep if I lie. So all I can tell you right now is that when we work together, you're getting the real deal every time we talk. And that was enough. Just, you got to have your reason, because otherwise there's 32 other realtors that would go and meet with them as well in the next 10 minutes. So
Can I highlight something you said?
you can highlight whatever you want.
No, I like that you said.
Do you
that.
want-
Of course, make sure that everybody heard this piece.
Just
right?
here. You just stand. We'll just,
Yeah.
we're good.
The part that you said, if they're going to be maybe 12 months out,
Yeah.
you'll still meet with them today. I think that's key, because I see the flip side where agents are like, oh yeah, I got 5 listing appointments this week. And we find out that it was really just a catching up, see how, building the relationship and just staying in relationship in general. We got to be cautious of that, because notice how Hudson said that he puts that to the side because he wants to make sure he knows his true conversion rate. So if it's not a ready, willing, and able buyer or seller, it's an appointment. Yeah, it's more of a nurture. I don't know if you would use a different term for it. And yet,
That is what it is.
there's probably, I don't know if you know for yourself, but would you say, hey, 10 nurture apartments gets me 1 qualified lead at the end of the day? There's probably some tracking that you can do there.
I'm
but
sure
just
there-
make sure
I
to
actually don't know that number,
Yeah.
and yet I know my conversion rate on a real appointment, and I'm not going to mess that up. I'm also still going to take care of the client.
exactly. So just keep that in mind as you're tracking your numbers. That's
Awesome,
all.
appreciate it. All right, let me get. There we go.
Technology.
Yeah, oh, I know, it's exciting. So, and honestly, that was a really good segue, because so the appointment is set, and now what do you do between then and the appointment? Because has anybody ever had somebody cancel on you? Yeah, no, just me. Okay. Has anybody ever had somebody not show up? Like, you go to the house, you're like, they're not even here. So stuff, or you go and you're like, whoa, this was not actually a listing appointment. Anybody ever got stuck with 4 hours? A sweet old lady who just wanted someone to talk to? Is that just me? Okay. So the segue is that to pre-qualify, because here's the thing. I'm not, and I know that everybody is different. I'm not going to stand up here and be like, if they're not ready to list within the next 10 days, I'm not meeting with them. Like, I'm not that guy. I don't think I ever will be. And I want to know, though, I want to know what I'm getting into. Is there a circumstance where I know it's not time for them to sell? Okay, well, then I go in there with a different attitude and a different approach and a different tracking. because I don't want to throw off my numbers. So you're going to pre-qualify. Now, again, y'all heard this so many times, and yet I bet you don't all do it. So, okay, so who do we pre-qualify? Oh, what was that? Everyone. Okay, cool. So like, it's your friend. We pre-qualify. Cool. It's your mom. Pre-qualify twice. I work with my mom. I can say it. Okay, so pre-qualify every time, my friends. Like, there's a couple of reasons to do it. First of all, it sets you apart as a professional. And again, if you're talking about, if it's somebody you already know, like, they need to see, when you're buddies with somebody and they've seen you like that time that maybe there were one too many grape juices, and like, with you making sure that they see you as a professional is important. You're also doing it so you do not waste your time. You're doing it so you go in prepared, because when you pre-qualify and ask the right questions, you know exactly how to tailor your listing appointment. You know if there's certain stats that you need to prepare so that you can look better. I mean, my favorite pre-qualification question is, are you interviewing anyone else? And if so, who is it? Because more often than not, they will tell you. And I don't care if it's the #1 agent in town. I bet you myself or my brokerage has a metric that's better. And if I go in with that and Mr. Big Shot goes in with no numbers because they know they're just going to get it, then I stand a chance. I stand a chance. All right. So we're going to pre-qualify. We're going to do it all the time, and we're going to do it so that we can succeed and we look like a professional. We're going to send or deliver a pre-list package. Who here uses a pre-list package? Oh, I just want to cry. Okay, guys, you're overthinking it. Put together something. Again, you're standing out as a professional. And going back to the beginning of the conversation, who here would like some of their time back? Would anyone not? Who here is not going to raise their hand no matter what I ask you? If you raise your hand, I'll give you $1 million. Cool. Okay, so there's going to be a fun another hour or so. Okay. It sets you apart as a professional, and it buys your time back. When you put together a strong pre-list package, then they already know that. See, here's the deal with the pre-list package that a lot of people don't understand. It's your opportunity to actually make it about you. Because if you make the listing appointment about you, you will lose every time. The pre-list package is where you get to tell them why you, what are your awards, what is so awesome about your team, what are people saying about you, including reviews and stuff like that. So you don't have to do that at the appointment, which turns them off anyways and takes time. The other thing that I always do with the pre-list package is I include any disclosures. Who in here is a high D? Cool. There's no louder internal scream when I'm on a listing appointment and it's a slow, like a reader, like they're going to go over everything. And we have to do the seller disclosure. Like, I would just, you know what? I don't need the listing. Have a nice day. I don't want it. So when you send those disclosures in the first place, if they look over it and don't fill them out, at least they're prepared with their questions so you can move through them quicker. However, if you walk in and they've filled out the disclosures, you don't need to do your full presentation. You're going to take the tour of the house and you're going to sit down and you're going to say, look, I see that you filled out the disclosures. Before we go over the rest of the paperwork, do you have any questions? Because they have told you that they are ready to list with you. Nobody fills out all of that ridiculous paperwork if they're not ready to move forward with you. So don't risk talking yourself out of it by going through a full presentation. All right, so you're going to do that. I used to do them in person. I work a big area. I mean, I work a really big area now. I used to work a big area, and it's just not really conducive. So we send them electronically. So guess what? We only had to like create it. We saved printing costs, and we use, there's a website. I think it's free. It's called Flip Snack. I know that sounds weird, and that is what it's called, Flip Snack. I think it's NAK, no C, whatever. You'd find it if you just started typing into Google. And you can you'll create your beautiful PDF, your presentation, and it turns it into an online booklet where the pages turn, it just looks really sharp and it's free. So that's what we send out. We have a saved email template that looks super wonderful, and all we have to do is swap out their names, and now they've got information, they've got the disclosures, we've confirmed the time, because you want to confirm the time about 82 times to make sure that you don't get there to a no-show. So set yourself apart as a professional, confirm the appointment, and confirm it assumptively. when you call and say, hey, you know what, Mr. Seller, I'm so excited to meet with you today at 3 o'clock. And I just wanted to see if that was still okay with you. What are you doing? You're giving them an out. In fact, you're giving them an opportunity to think about, I don't know. They don't sound sure. Should I? Hey, you know what, Mr. Seller, I'm so excited. And I just wanted to remind you of our appointment at 3 o'clock. I'll see you then. And you hang up that phone before they can even say anything. And yet, if they're really going to cancel, they'll stop you and tell you, so you still don't waste your time. And yet you're not planting the seed of doubt, because you really don't ever want to do that. And the words that you use matter. So you're going to confirm the appointment. You're going to do it assumptively, and you're going to give some excitement. Like, you also, like, this is all scary. It's scary when you sell. It's really scary when you buy right now. And so be excited, keep things upbeat. And I know that not everybody is a raging high I like I am. And at the same time, you can still model a little bit and give people some excitement. The other thing that I like to use, because I do have children, is guilt a lot. And so as you're setting the appointment, you know what, I'm so excited. We're going to meet tomorrow at 3. It's going to be fantastic. And look, I have cleared everything else from my calendar during that time. So I just can't wait. And you know what, when the confirmation email that has the pre-list package goes out, you know what, so excited. And just a reminder, I've cleared everything else off my calendar. This is how I feed my children. And I cannot wait to see you. And then when you call that morning to remind them, you know, I'm so excited. I'm going to be there at 3 o'clock on. I'm going to be super sharp because I've just cleared everything else off my calendar. They don't like really want to be horrible and take your time. And yet people don't know what you do. They don't know if you have 22 appointments a day or you only have 1 a month. So make them know that you have cleared your time. And if they don't show up, they're very mean and you will haunt them when you pass later on. All right. Oh, there we go. Okay. So now you're getting ready for the appointment, right? Because you've got to go in there and wow them. And who here knows who Jeff Glover is? Okay, who here has ever gone to one of his classes? Anybody? Okay. Something that a lot of things stuck with me. I really admire him. And yet one of the things that he said that has always stayed with me is that when he's going on an appointment, it is showtime. Like straight up, like he's an actor, like he is going in and he is going to be the best version of himself. He actually puts it in his calendar as showtime. So it's like showtime 123 Main Street. And in fact, if he doesn't have an appointment, he'll go practice his appointment during that time because that's how important it is. So get ready, like guys, show up prepared. Do yourself a favor and don't be pulling comps in the driveway of the house. Like that's just not, you're not set up for success. So set yourself up for success. Block things that are gonna, like if you went into a listing appointment 5 minutes after you got really bad news, how well are you gonna perform? Very likely. Like not so beautifully. So don't do that. So like maybe we don't need to check our emails. Don't freak out on me. I know you've checked them 22 times since we've been in the room. Maybe we don't need to check our emails, you know, within 30 minutes of an appointment. Maybe we should be mindful about what we listen to in the car. Maybe it's certain music that pumps you up. Maybe it's a podcast that's really inspiring. Like, what can you do to make sure that you go in with the best and strongest mindset prepared to just slay it and get that listing? Your hello is where things start. And you have to remember that, because who here has ever had a buyer where you pulled up to the house and didn't even get in? And it one way or another was like, oh, this is it. Or, oh, nope, we can keep going. Anybody? Just me? Great, cool. So it's the same with you. And there's the saying that there's no chance for a second impression, right? Your first impression is your first impression. And I beg to differ in this business. When you are working with somebody that you already know in a different capacity and you show up for a listing appointment, that is a second first impression. How you show up matters, how you start matters. You know, and I'm talking like really ridiculous details. Like when you knock on the door or ring the doorbell, do you take a step or two back so you're not like creepily in their face when they open the door? Do you, gosh, in our current environment, do you just throw your hand over at them, or do you say, hey, are you a handshaker or fist? Like, are you asking them? Are you leading the conversation? Are you introducing yourself? Do you show up looking prepared? Like, this will sound goofy, but if you want to look more official, come in with a clipboard. I'm dead serious. It makes you look more professional. It also helps take notes when you're in the house. There's an agent that I love up in Sarasota, Tony Zargami, and she she very casually has one of those plastic clipboards. I think she has more than one of them. She keeps a picture of her really cute little family on the back of the clipboard, just like because she's cute and she put it there. Except the real reason she does it is because she wants those people to see right from the start why she's out there working so hard. So that if she's up against somebody else who was like all business, they might have a little bit of a second thought if they're thinking about using that second person, that second agent. So be purposeful and start right at the door. And look, Diana Kokoza would kill me if she was here. Go on the tour with them. I know if any people that took Bold for like years, like before the COVID times, yeah, and she was, nope, you go on the tour because she wanted to save time, and I love saving time. And yet that tour is where you build rapport. That tour is where you show them your attention to detail and how much you care about their home. And I literally feel like she might walk in the door and kill me because I'm a Bold coach. And I'm telling you right now, let them take you on a tour, give them control in that moment. And then that way you're not building rapport at the table where you really should be discussing business. And you're always, man, that green carpet, I love it. It's so great. You're going to make sure that you find a couple things to compliment. No, not really the green carpet. And yet you're going to make sure you compliment that tour is important. The be a human thing, I kind of skipped over that. And that's the Tony Zargami example. Like, don't be afraid to share who you are. You know, I just did a class in Sarasota and there was an agent in there who made me feel normal because she and her husband, who are both agents, have 9 children, which is insane. And so because you need 2 cars. Anyways, so she said she's very uncomfortable with it and she thinks it's going to cost her business. And I'm like, I don't think that at all. I think if you're able to show up to an appointment on time at all, and you have 9 kids, you've already told me that you're an amazing professional. And so don't be afraid to be who you are while being the most professional and best version of yourself. Make everything about them in that appointment, guys. It is not about you. You had that chance in the pre-qual and you had that chance in the pre-list. Again, don't be a robot, and yet make it about them. And that's the way to get the listing anyways. What are their needs? Why are you there? Why are they listening to you in the first place? Why would they sell their home? Where are they going? Why is that important to them? Make it about them. All right. Stay on a plan. Like, go. Okay. So for years, like over a decade level years, I totally went in and winged every listing appointment. I had no presentation. Anybody else? Cool. Stop doing that, please. Go and it's okay to do something new, even when you've been in the business for like 10 or 20 years or whatever it is. Have a listing presentation. Now, I don't say you don't need to stand there and read. Like, I'm not saying that. Have a structure and a plan and a flow so that you never get knocked off your game. Because things go weird. And then all of a sudden you're the biggest professional ever and you're lost. So stay on a plan and be flexible on it. Because as I mentioned earlier, sometimes people are ready to be closed before you're done. And you don't want to just keep going because you're that stuck to your plan. So have a listing presentation, and this is not a command class. You're welcome. I know you don't want another one. And the listing presentation in command is fabulous. So if you don't have one that you've ever followed, and I don't care if you've sold 1 house or 1,000 houses, do yourself a favor and go look at that. It's customizable so that you can look like you. And yet it's a fantastic listing presentation that I have literally seen brand new agents go in and take the listing with. Because it tells you everything to say without ever looking to the seller like it's a script, because it's pretty. And it's literally a list of questions. It's phenomenal. So have something and stick with it and close. Like, again, unless they straight up have told you that they're not going to sell right now and this is an information session. And even then, by the end, I'm still going to say like, hey, I know you said you weren't ready. I just want to, after we met today, though, has that changed? Like, I'm still going to ask them. I'm not going to go directly into paperwork. I am going to ask them. If you're on a listing appointment, though, you get to the end of whatever your presentation looks like and you say, great, well, now we're going to go over the paperwork, and you take it out and you start going over it until they say, whoa, whoa, whoa. Because they won't always say that. So don't be afraid to close and don't make it clunky. So do you want to work with me? Yeah, they want to work with you. You're still in the house. They didn't kick you out. They had you in. They let you in the door. So just go into the paperwork. Like, literally go straight in. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. And they'll tell you if they have objections, and then you'll handle them. And then you'll go back to the paperwork. Because the other thing that we do in this industry, which I think is just so cute, is that we go in and we did great. And then we're like, well, I'll follow up with you later. Stop. Your chances of taking the listing when you've walked out that door literally go down like the stock market has lately. Like, and but I know them and they're my friend and I'm gonna send it to them. And like, that's the other thing. We are a tech company. Electronics save us, and I love it. And I don't care to the day they tell me that if I'll go to jail if I do it, I will take a paper listing agreement to every appointment because I want the signature. And I don't want to fumble around with anything online to send it to them from the table. That feels weird. I'm sitting here. Let's sign it. So I don't care who it is, get the signature before you leave, if at all possible, without literally being a crazy person. Okay? I want to stop for a second because we're actually trucking pretty well. I would have normally stopped like 3 times and asked for questions. Are there any questions in the room or on Zoom? Let's see if I can finagle this. Any questions in the room or on Zoom? And if I don't see you, it's because my vision's horrible, so just say something. Yes. Yeah.
Totally assumed something this week. Really good friends of ours went to their house to look at selling it the other night, and he texted me on Friday and said, could we list it at 419? And I said, yeah, we could do that. That was it. End of conversation. We could do that. He texted me yesterday. He said, do you need anything more from me? And I said, I didn't say, are you ready to go forward? I literally didn't. I'm like,
Well,
I'm so sorry.
well, thank goodness in this example that you won. Like, and yet you have and this is not what this class is for. If you struggle with the closing, it's time to do that 5th thing on the real estate job description and practice and role play and have conversations. Because the thing that kills me, especially as a bold coach, because we talk about this a lot in bold, oh my gosh, I don't like to do that. You all practice and role play. It's just that most real estate agents do it on appointments, and it's really expensive to do it that way. So, because when you're a master at objection handling on the fly, especially, and you don't need a piece of paper to reference, like you can get every listing that you want, essentially. Does anybody else have a question or an aha?
For me, that last part around practice role play, we talked about it, and up here, Adrian put this up here, and it's the 5th job responsibility, the script practice and role play. Adrian always
like it's right up there.
He felt very strongly about it being number 1, and I mean, I gotta tell you guys, I don't see the role playing happening like as it should. We should be scripting our phone calls. We should be scripting our buyer consultation. I remember we met together, and I went through the whole buyer presentation with you, and there's a whole flow to that. And the more we practice that, when those objections come, it's like that. Because the last thing you want to do is, good question. No bueno. And that's where you lose opportunities.
Now, I will say, like, not to make this a mini like objection handler class, and yet I'm going to do it. So when you don't know what to say, and you should be doing this anyways, just repeat it. Oh, okay. So what I'm hearing you say is that you're concerned about where you're going to go once the house sells. What I'm hearing you say is that you're concerned about the commission. You are buying yourself time to go into the mental Rolodex. Some of you are too young to know what that is. To go into the mental to go into the cloud and find the right thing to say. And the right thing to say does not need to be an exact script. It just needs to be a message. And I saw the question online on Zoom about somebody had moved here from Rhode Island and is just getting started over again. Well, so P.S. I've done that twice. I started my career in Southern California, and then I moved to the Fort Myers, this area kind of here. And then I moved up to Tampa. So I've done it twice. And what I would tell you, probably one of my biggest mistakes was not utilizing that old database. Like your people in Rhode Island, it's really cold and awful there right now. Like there are people that will move here. There are people that will move to other parts of Florida. And so whether you're a new agent, an experienced agent, an agent who's starting over, I mean, my best advice to you to get busy is just treat your job is to train your database to think of you when they think of real estate. And I don't care if the person lives locally or lives across the world, because you could have a great business with referrals. I mean, you could have a great business no matter what. So love on your database. And then honestly, every time I had to start my business again, I was open house person. I didn't want to buy leads because it's so expensive and the leads are like special. So I would do open houses because then the people come to you. So I would say love on that database regardless of where they are, and then do open houses. As far as joining a team, I mean, I would say, I'm happy to talk with you about that. I'm sure your leadership would talk to you about that too. It depends on what you're looking for. Any other questions or ahas, or does anyone want to throw a tomato at me yet? We good? Okay. It'd be really weird if a tomato came my way. Yes.
What would you advise a new agent in this market that open houses? Would you still target open houses heavily with things going on the market or on the contract so quickly?
I would. Well, and we're gonna this is the second segue, by the way. So I really appreciate that. No, I would totally work open houses. I mean, first of all, there's not that many open houses out there anymore. So there's a ton of people out and less open houses. So, I mean, do the math. And you've got all these people who are going to work with the listing agent. They don't know if you're the listing agent or not when they walk in. I would absolutely, to me, like, I'm all about what's free and cheap. Like you have to be when you have 6 kids. Open houses are great. Like they come to you. And I know, groundbreaking. Go door knock. Go find a place where it's okay to door knock. There are plenty of places where you can. It is very difficult for somebody to be mean and awful to you when they are face to face with you. So don't be afraid, and don't listen to the stories in your head about that. Get in front of people every way that you can. Wear your name tag places. The best stupid trick in the world is to have a name tag and wear it upside down everywhere you go. Because strangers will stop you left and right to be like, hey, sorry to bug you, your name tag's upside down. Oh, thanks, sorry about that, And now you're in a conversation. If they stop to tell you, they're a decent human being. So you're ready to proceed with the conversation. So yeah, I mean, gosh, for a new agent, what are the free ways that you can get in front of people so that you're not bleeding yourself dry? Because I die a little bit inside every time a brand new agent goes and signs up with Zillow or something like that. Unless you are sitting on a trust fund, you are going to put yourself out of business before you ever got to sell a house. Yes, sir.
To that point, though, if they have a new agent doing that and they have a script practice and role play, they'll be nothing. You don't know how to convert.
Well, that's the truth. So that's the other thing. Like, get involved. Like, if you're a new agent, get involved with your office. Be the teacher's pet that shows up to everything. Learn, and go out and implement. Because if all you're doing is going to classes, I'm sorry, that is not how you make money in this business. I'm so sorry. I wish it was, because I love going to classes. All right. So, just kidding. No, I know. Maybe. Whoop. Sweet. Okay. So now you've got a listing. Yay, it's already sold. Just kidding. So you've got a listing. So are you being purposeful when you get a listing? Because like you said something, and this is it's so hard to, open houses are tough because the listings sell so quick. Well, that's because agents get so excited when they get a listing and their sellers are all excitable and they're letting the sellers call the shots. So they take the listing on Monday night and they've got it up with cell phone pics on Tuesday morning. Don't do that. Stop doing that. First of all, everybody, like, sidebar, everybody should have a standard for their business regardless of the market or the home. And so if you in a normal market would take professional pictures and have a tour created and you're skipping out on that because the homes are selling so quick, that will bite you later on, I promise, because you're dialing it in. So have a standard, and also lead the seller. Don't let the seller lead you. I mean, also don't be an insane person and boss them around. You know what? Hey, so I'm excited to work with you. We've got the listing signed. That's the first big step. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get our photographer out here on such and such a day, or I'll let you know what day it is. And then we list our homes on Friday morning. No matter when we've got the pictures back, we list our homes on Friday morning because the most people are available on the weekend to look at homes. And in this market, we're going to sell so quick that I want to make sure you get the highest price possible. So if we list like on a Tuesday, you're going to sell and you're going to get a great price. And yet if we list on a Friday, you got a much better shot at getting an amazing price for your home. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have open house Saturday and Sunday, because I intend to create the most ridiculous bidding war of all time on your house. Yes, sir. So, okay, so I'm in a different MLS where you would literally get fined to death if you did that. There's no such thing as.
My house says you put it in the MLS one business day. So we had a session with the get Brian.
Yeah.
That, list it on Friday, but your open house.
Well, and I don't think that's a bad idea either. Either way, have a plan and leverage the listing. Like
Now
get
you're
out.
not-
Yes.
you're getting Traffic, and buyers.
Yeah.
Ahead of it hitting the MLS. And it's perfectly legitimate. You could actually put it in on Monday.
Yeah.
You have the whole weekend to have open houses, have access.
And I think that's great.
I think that's a new twist because of the situation.
Well, and I also feel like either way, like you're right, I'm right, both are right, because it's having a plan and sticking to it. Like the listings there's plenty of listings out there and they are tougher to get purely because we have more competition and people are really stepping up their game in this market because all the good agents want listings. So when you get it, don't get excitable, follow a plan, whatever. I don't care. Maybe Monday is the day you list it and you hold it for a full week before you look at it. Whatever it is, have a plan and stick to it and leverage that listing. Okay. Because do you set expectations? When are offers due by? Because I know that there's some houses that don't sell in 5 minutes, and yet when you list one that will. So in that case, when are offers due by? What are showings going to look like? Are you preparing the seller for that as well so that they're very happy and they want to refer you people? Okay, so have a plan, stick to it, because again, I have agents come to me all the time. They're like, I can't ever get an open house on any of my listings. I'm like, well, that's your fault. Like it's your fault. You have control over that. And this is my little like do the right thing PSA. If you have a listing and don't want to do the open house, that's me. Because if I ever do one again, I'd rather die. I've held a lot of open houses, probably like 500, like not even kidding. I don't want to do them anymore. I'm going to give the opportunity to another agent because there are people who are going to fail out of this business if you don't give them that opportunity. So that's my thing. And yet have a system and follow it. And what are you doing to maximize your exposure? Oh, you know what? The house is going to sell so quick, so I don't need to do a just listed flyer. Okay, but like, do you want more listings? Because the rule of 3 is real. It's been real for decades. Like 1, 2, 3 Main Street lists, and within a couple of block radius, there's going to be 2 more sales easily within the next couple of months. So are you the one that's going to get them? Well, if you have open houses and you show up and you have a super professional setup while you're there, then great, that helps because people are going to walk in. Are you doing just listed flyers? There's an agent that I used to work with in Southern California who is now way into Gary's top 100. Her name is Elizabeth Doe. She teaches sometime, you may have seen her. She's like 12 years old and super successful and makes me mad, except I like her. And her whole business was built. She never had a geographical farm. When she got a listing, it was just listed. As soon as it went under contract, it was under contract. As soon as it closed, it was just sold. 30 days later, there was a second just sold, literally the same postcard because she didn't care. And then 6 months later, a third just sold, literally the same postcard. She bought them in bulk. And that is how she built her massive, massive business. So what is your plan? How do you maximize that? Are you willing to go get uncomfortable and door knock? I don't care if it's 5 homes or 500. Like, are you willing to do something and have a standard for every time you get a listing so that you get more listings? Because it is hard to get a listing, not because they're not available, because this is hard work. I know that a lot of us got into this business because we thought the money was just going to roll on in like mad, and that's not how it works. So do you want to do that every time you get a listing, or do you want the neighbor to be like, man, I cannot believe it. I've been thinking of selling. I didn't know who to use. And between your open house and the mailers you sent, and you came and knocked on my door the other day, like, when can you come over? Because I want that call. That's the call that I desire. All right. Are you putting a sign up? Look, I know that sounds very elementary, and it is. Put your sign up. Like, people, it's so funny because this market is bananas. And for the longest time, everything was electronic, and it still is, except now people are out driving around because they want to see the sign before it goes up because they've been offering for 10 months. So is your sign up so that you can get calls? Are you making sure that that happens? Because I know if it's like my area, the signpost people are backed up. So are you calling in enough advance to make sure that it's up so that you get exposure? And again, the last thing I would say is, now this is buyers, and yet we still like those dollars spend the same. It's so fun. Are you, in my experience, maybe it's different here. In the last year and a half or so, we have got way more inquiries on our own listings than we typically would. Anybody else? Yeah, okay. Are we working to convert them, or are we just like, yeah, it's 375, click? They're tired. there's a real good chance you are not the first agent that they have called about a listing that they're not going to be able to buy. And yet they want to buy, and they think that if they keep calling listing agents, that that's how they're going to win. And yet we know that's not necessarily how they're going to win. And I will tell you, we had 13 closings last year that were, I still call them sign calls, even though they weren't all sign calls, they were internet calls and stuff like that. People that called to offer on our listing didn't get it. And yet the agents worked to convert, and now they bought with them. 13 of them. And for the record, those are the only sales we had last year that weren't referral based. So are you using that? Are you using every opportunity that comes to you? So, okay, so you've got the listing, you had it for 10 minutes and now it's sold, and that's exciting. So we had a few people that were honest earlier about they struggle calling their database, right? So, and I used to be there too. You know what? You don't have to have the awkward reconnection call if you just don't lose connection. And I think as an industry, we have to remember, especially now, because all these people like live in HGTV land, like they think you're best friends. Like they have had matching bracelets made, they just didn't give it to you yet. And they think that you're best friends, and then you get your check and you're out. And then a year, 2 years, 3 years later, when you're a little slow and you're like, I guess I should look at my database. And then you call them and it's weird. And you're like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm looking to reconnect. And you're not going to ask for business then because like you hadn't called them for 3 years. Or you could just like not do that. And like right at closing, you could set up on a plan so that you knew you were going to call them. Really, if when they just bought a house from you, I would not wait 3 months. I would call them a month later. Hey, how's it going? How'd the move go? How's the new house? How is the, like, whatever. You're going to keep in touch with them. And the best time for you to get a referral from a client is while you are working with them. So now when the appraisal comes in $50,000 short is not the best time to ask for the referral. Now, when the appraisal comes in on the money, or when the inspection happens and everything is so, like they didn't ask for anything, even though the roof is literally caving in, it is a great time because they're happy to say, hey, you know what? I'm having so much fun working with you. And I bet your friends and family are just like you. Who else do you know that's looking to sell their house or buy? Lead with sell because you want sellers. That's why you're here today. At closing, they are happy. Even if your deal went weird a couple times, at closing, they're happy. They're getting if they're a seller, they're getting a fat check right now. They could have bought yesterday and then flipped it for 100 grand more. So they're happy. So are you asking for referrals on the spot? Do any of you in here know and or use The Promise from Tony Baroni? Does that ring a bell at all? I'm going to give you my super high D version because it's too many words. So and this is something that you have to do. You have to set it up in the beginning. So you're in your consultation and you're having a great time. And you're going to say, look, I'd like to share with you our promise. Would that be okay? They'll say, okay, every single time. Great. Well, you know what? So my promise to you, or our team's promise to you, is that we are going to deliver just a 5-star real estate experience, the best experience that you could ask for as a seller or buyer, whatever it is at the time. And in return, when we deliver on that promise, and only when we deliver on that promise, we're going to ask for 2 things from you. Would that be okay? And they'll say yes every time. If you don't think they will, stop listening to the little voice that kills all your dreams. They will say yes every time. Great. So when we deliver that 5-star experience, we're going to ask for 2 things. The first is we're going to ask for a 5-star review from you. So if everything's great, will you be willing to write us a 5-star review? They're super important to us. Yes, they'll do it. Yay. Okay, cool. And then the second thing we're going to ask for is, especially while you're in the process of a real estate transaction, between now and closing, you're going to come across probably multiple people who are also looking to sell their home or buy their home. And all we ask is that you give us one of those people, that you refer us one. Now, later on, you're going to tell them you want all their referrals, but you're coming in a little too hot when you've just met them. So you know what? I'm going to ask that between now and closing that you give us one referral. And that's whether they're looking to sell or buy, or honestly, even if they need to refi or remodel their house, anything real estate related. Now, you don't really want the refi and remodel people because you want to get paid. And yet you want to make sure that that person knows that you're there to serve real estate needs, period. So you set them up for the promise. The reason I bring it up now when we're at like the listing is already sold is that if you haven't got that referral yet and you set them up for that, then that is a great time to have that conversation at the closing table with that big old fat check sitting in front of them. Hey, you know what? I realized we haven't gotten a referral from you yet. I wanted to double check. Did we deliver on our promise? They'll say yes. great. We don't want no pressure. You know, it didn't happen by closing. That's cool. You think in the next 30 days, you could send us a referral? They'll say yes. And then if they don't, you get to keep checking in and you've bought the opportunity to do that. So are you getting the referrals and are you asking from them from the start? Because most of us wait till it's like 6 months later and they still like you, just not as much. Sorry. Are you using social media as leverage? Who here, I like to out people for things that I don't like. Who here doesn't put their clients on their social media? No one? Or are you just not raising your hand? You're the same person that I didn't get to give the $1 million to. So put your clients on social media and tell your story without being an awful, annoying door-to-door salesperson. You don't need to post on your personal Facebook page. Here's the link to my 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. It has this many square feet. Like, that's boring. Don't do that. When you take a listing and you get 72 offers on it and you get 6 figures over list price, you tell that story and you tell it with some like excitement. When you close that, not a listing, doesn't matter. When you close the first time buyer that took 20 years to save, or heck, they're 60 years old and they just bought their first house, you tell that story and how that felt. Are you using social media to your advantage? Because does everybody and their mother not watch horrible HGTV? They're obsessed with real estate and you all want to hide the fact that you're in real estate because you don't want to bother them. That's none of my business though. So tell your story and just make sure, tell the things that are funny, tell the things that are heartwarming, tell the things that are like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. And then you're good. You can post about as much as you want. No one will care. They'll in fact enjoy it. And when they know 32 realtors and they're ready to sell and you're the one that keeps them informed and entertained while doing it, you're going to get the business. All right, so do that. I'm not looking at the right thing, so I'll look here. We already talked about the promise. All right. So that's my deal on listings. So we'll go into the second half of the conversation. And yet before we do that, I would love to hear, well, any questions I would love to hear. And I would love for 2 to 3 people to share an aha or an actionable item that they're going to take out of here. Because otherwise I'll cry the whole way home if we got no value. Yes, Nico.
Yes, so a lot of, I love the promise. I've heard of that before, and we do a lot of consultations.
Yeah.
And yes, setting up the expectation about the reviews and the referral is what I haven't been doing. I am asking for the review at closing or right before closing when I know that things went great, and you know we do get really good reviews. But the referrals, I've been missing out on that.
And I appreciate that. And unless it was really bad, ask for the review anyways. You know what? If you have 300 reviews and you have a perfect 5-star, I don't know about you, but I look at that and I'm like, I don't know how many of those he paid for. Like it seems, so if you get one not perfect, now if somebody's going to give you like 0 stars, like you maybe don't need to remember to ask them. And yet if you're worried that somebody might not give you perfect, I think that makes you look more like a human and a true professional and a business owner, because I don't think I've bought any. I'm in the process of a very, very long and large remodel right now. And I don't think I've bought anything that had less than 4 stars. And I also don't think I've bought anything that had perfect 5 stars. So keep that in mind. I love that though. Who else? If you're on Zoom, you don't need to raise your hand. You just start talking. Yes, sir.
I do like the flipboard with the photo kit on it. If somebody does a lot of open
It's
houses.
so simple.
Do a lot of open houses. I can see using that for like to ask them questions. So those people see that also. They feel a little more.
I think little things matter. You know, it's funny because when I was in the team leader role, she's a friend of mine, Tony Zargami, but she came and taught a listing class in my office. And one of the things she shared is that she's like, no matter what, at that front door, she takes her shoes off. And now if they say like, oh, no, you don't need to worry about that, she'll put them back on. Like she just assumes, because have you ever gone to the place where like they look at you like you are Satan spawn because you walked in their house with shoes on? So like all those little things that might seem so minute, to me, and not just in business and life, like the little things are what add up to matter. The big stuff is fleeting moments. It's the little stuff that adds up and creates something. One more person, either a question or an aha. Oh, who? Yes.
I just need to, stick it to the plan for every single listing. We be very strategic with the days that goes on the market.
Yeah.
Going off the bike to the open house,
Oh, see how smart she is? She's smart. It's a invitation. Yes.
And every one of them that they went to, they said they knew that the house was for sale. The lady lived there for 30 years.
Yeah.
But they thank you, and she got invited in a few times, and it was great. But what we're not being strategic enough about is making sure that no matter where we send out those 3 just listed under contract. So because sometimes I'll why?
Well, and and stick with it, and you're okay to have a budget. Like maybe you're only sending 50 every time. I don't care, but have a system that you can stick to. And when you take a listing, especially in this market, like you're getting paid, so you could spend a little bit of money. Just don't be crazy. Don't spend all of your profit. And yet, I love that. Like, go and have a system. And the whole how long have you been in the business? Because I've known you a long time. Okay, so 13 years, and I saw you're like me, like I was forever, like you wing the listing appointment and you probably still get them most of the time. And yet I feel like when you have a system to follow, you never, because even, I'm sure there's some listing appointments where you're a little whether because of the size of the person, maybe you're nervous or you're having an off day. And I think when that happens and you have a system that you can follow, you get to still be exceptional, even when it wasn't maybe the best day or the best situation. So, all right. Anybody else?
I was thinking when you were talking about more homes sold than last year than they did in 2006. It's truly all mindset. I talk to a lot of agents every day, right?
Yeah.
About the market and all. And it's truly mindset. I think if we keep that, and I also like to talk about showtime, right? I'm going to change my appointments now showtime because I think that's.
Well, yeah, because in your role, it's the same deal. Like you've got to be.
And I go from one to the next, and I think I need to do a little bit of gap between them and remind myself of showtime always, no matter what level that they're at.
Yeah, and I just want to tell you all, and there's some really high producers in this room and in your office that I believe would probably echo me that the more business you do, the less you get to work. And I know that sounds weird, and yet I'm telling you right now, if you can hustle through, and especially in this market, because we're in a shift. I know the prices are still going up, and yet we're in a shift. The industry is changing at a high level. Brokerages are changing. The way everything works is changing, and you're going to be able to take on crazy market share and mind share when you hustle through a market like this. And you will get to a point where it doesn't feel like you need to go cry in the bath every night when you get home. Because if I was dealing with buyers right now, I would have died already. I can't. So kudos to you if you're dealing with buyers on a regular basis. Whew, that's tough. It does get easier. Yes.
No, so just to Morgan's point, your mindset when you said there's no shortage of listings, it's just they're there, it's just more competition. You definitely have to step up your game in order to create those.
Well, and that's the thing, that the interesting thing about the brain is that it doesn't know the difference between the truth and a lie. Your brain is a machine, it's a computer, it's not your heart. So it's going to believe whatever you tell it. And when you keep saying and listening to other people about the fact that there's just no listings out there, it's literally untrue. And yet it doesn't matter. In your brain, that's all you're going to think about. And you're sitting, I'll come right to you. You're sitting in the restaurant and you have the booth on either side talking about selling their home and you won't even hear it because you have convinced yourself that it's not a thing. Yes, sir.
I just was going to say, kind of point, we sit in these meetings, we sit in this industry, we think we understand that people know that there are listings out there, or we subject ourselves to that. The reality is, we go on a listing appointment. Odds are that person, 80% of them have no idea what the market is. They have no idea what real estate questions, comments. They lack the understanding. They hear the home's value. They hear what's going on selling. That's the mindset. The mindset is realizing we come from the industry. We think we know it. You're dealing with something that no knowledge.
Your job is to educate your people. Your job is to build relationships and then educate the people that you have relationships with because they have no clue. They think they have a clue. They have no clue. And numbers, and that's why at the beginning I told you to just give them their value. Don't ask if they want it. For the record, that's not part of that call. Hey, would you like to know? No. Hey, I had a few minutes and I pulled this information and here it is. Give them the information because they don't know. And everything in their brain changes when they get new information.
And you go prepared with tons of information, setting the price, comps.
Yeah, go with more than you need.
Yeah. You're not gonna, because it's a relationship. But they think that at least you're coming from a place of education. And
Well, you've shown that you're exceptional and you know what you're doing.
It's great. I mean, in this market, I mean, think about the opposite market back in '09.
Oh, I remember.
You're the bringer of bad news to the sellers. We're bringing these people life-changing in some circumstance news.
Well, so this is the thing that you have to, if you're having trouble having conversations like this, you have to remember that unless it's like your closest people, and then even then you don't always, like, you don't know who's lost a job and you don't know about it. You don't know who's buried in debt and you don't know about it. You don't know whose kid is about to go to college and they don't know if they can afford it. And when you tell them about the amount of equity that's sitting in their home, you open up opportunity for them and you literally change lives. Like, you have the power to do that just within your little real estate business. And yet we're not doing it. So don't be afraid to go do that. Yes, were you? Oh, no, you're just itching. I get it.
No, I got a question.
Yeah, that's the end of the thought. So go ahead.
I like the strategy of providing value, bringing income with service, and doing CMAs and offering that on those calls. It's a great strategy. Just wondering how you kind of position that with other strategy of you're on a listing appointment, not giving the value that you think it should be, letting the seller kind of tell you what their house should be worth. Does that ever kind of fit you in the wrong way, or does that ever put you at disservice when you're out?
I feel like yes and no, not in this situation. So like, I wouldn't tell you to go, not that you couldn't, I wouldn't tell you to go and call strangers. And at the same time, like, you're giving them your number. So I'm not saying it could be worth 5, it could be worth 7, and you're telling them 7. Like, you're giving a number that is not so safe that it's not attractive to them. Like, you're giving them something you could stand behind. And then if you get on the appointment and they want to do more and you know that you can get it, then that's different. So I completely get your point. And in general, like, if somebody just calls me and they're interested in listing their house, I'm not giving them a price over the phone. And yet, as a strategy to get in front of people and get the appointment, I'm calling people that I know, telling them what their home is worth, and letting the silence do the heavy lifting. Because they're either going to say like, hey, that's so cool, thanks for letting me know. Or, hey, you know what, that's great, and we're not going anywhere. Hey, that's really interesting, we should talk. Hey, you know what? We really are outgrowing this house. What would an upgrade look like? How do we find something in this market? Hey, well, I'll come right to you, Nico. You know, hey, gosh, I don't want to move. That's a lot of equity, though. And then you get to say, like, well, have you thought about investing in real estate? Like, you open up conversation. Yes, sir.
You know, so to your point, my cousin, she sold a unit, a townhouse at the Vistas 2 years ago. And I have another client thinking about selling. So then I have the Vistas in my brain. I texted my cousin. I said, hey, just so you know, your townhouses are selling for around 310, 320. You know, and you know how the family and all that. So she replies with a smile and says, okay, Nico, good to know. I'll let you know. But my point is that now she knows, and here I'm keeping the relationship.
Yeah.
And then whenever she's ready, she'll be like, you know, Nico, what's up? You know?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yes.
I think one of the most surprising ones that I've had this past year, and it was a real eye-opener for me, was clients that I helped them with their new build. And they had so much money and upgrades, and I was telling them, I'm pretty close with them. Tapped out, like, you're scaring me with all these upgrades. Oh no, we're going to live here forever. This is our forever home. Don't worry about it, Michelle. Okay, whatever you say. And they called me and asked me, hey, I just saw next door. Is that really real? And I'm like, yeah, really real. I never ever in my life thought that they would move from that home. Everything they said to me. We ended up selling the home, multiple offers, but 10% above asking price. They took the money, bought a brand new manufactured home for $180,000 in a 55+ community that is cute as a button. Put all the rest of it into their retirement fund because they're close to retirement age, and took a certain percentage it, and basically they are traveling, going all these places. It changed their life.
See, and
You never.
well, and you just and that's something I meant to say. So when I tell you to go in and call anybody that owns a home, I don't care if they bought it last month. Because if they bought it last month in this market, it's worth more money. And I've got an agent in my office that just closed, I want to say 4 months ago, on a new construction build for $1.3 million and just sold it for $2 million. Like, she's got a money hungry dude that's on the other end. And he said, hey, there's no inventory. What could I sell this for? And they threw a crazy number out there and got it. So don't put judgment on how long they've owned the house. Yes, we'll go to you and then we'll do the rest. And then we're going to open it up for questions still too.
Just a question. You go on your listing appointment, you've got your
idea what the price is and the seller wants a lot more. You still take it in this market?
There's always a level where I wouldn't. And yet in this market, I mean, unless a lot more is like a whole other house price more, then honestly, I'd probably still take it, because I can't tell you how many houses I've been like, oh my God, really? Like I thought we had come up with the crazy price and it still went over. And you also, it's education. You know, you literally could not underprice a house if you tried in this market, unless you didn't put it on the MLS. So I mean, I would say do your best to get the correct price, because I'm a firm believer, not to like something stupid, and yet the closer to real market value that you listed at, the better your experience is going to be in your return. And at the same time, yeah, like I'm pretty much almost always going to take the listing unless it's literally like, so I laughed because it was so bad. Yes.
To your point, I think that it's important to remember, we've been talking a lot about this with people on my team, that this is, when you look at CMAs and you look at comps, you're looking at the rear view mirror. We are going 100 miles an hour, looking out the front of the windshield, going Mach speed forward. So anything that you pulled yesterday or a week ago or a month ago is history. So to your point, is there a number that's outrageous? I mean, Jessica and I are doing this one. I had to convince the seller to mark this house up. He thought his house would never sell over 600 grand. I went back to him 3-4 times. We need to raise this price. We're going to look stupid. This needs to be higher. And it sold for 130,000 more than what the list price was. And, you know, I mean, those are the types of situations where I had to convince him that we're underpriced.
This is like the one time in your big giant career where you can actually take the stupid prices and not look like an idiot. So I want to do what Amber asked me to come do. And I do want to give a little bit of kind of like what my life has been for the past few years, and then just completely open it up for questions. And we can go back to listing questions for all I care. It's totally fine. Or whatever you want to ask. I'm an open book, probably to a fault. So I did get into the business back in 2006 in Southern California, and I was there for 8 years. And I like always made 6 figures, and yet the houses were like the price of here. So you didn't have to sell a lot of them. And I'd grown up there, and what I'm getting at is I never really ran the business like a business, and I was really young and just didn't care. And so I moved to Florida in 2014. I had gotten into a long distance relationship in 2013 with a psychopath. And that's a whole other, that's, some of you actually know that person. Anyway, sorry in advance. So it was not the best time. So I moved here. I moved to Estero, by the way. So I came from a city with like millions of people and moved to Estero, and that was weird. And so I started completely over, and I'm a firm believer, like Rhode Island, if you're still there, like your sphere is pertinent, and even mine would have been. And yet in that moment, I'm like, okay, well, like nobody is moving here from Long Beach, California, which is where I came from. So like, I need to start from scratch. And for like 7 months, I was out there hoofing it, and I had like a whopping 0 sales, and it was October of 2014. And where Amber and I's path crossed, and the reason that we are friends and I am here is that I stepped into bold for the first time. This is not a bold commercial, by the way. I'm just sharing part of the story. It was kind of my last rope. I was already super broke. Yes.
So you were with KW already?
I was already with KW. Yes. Yeah. I've always been with Keller Williams because I'm smart like that. And I went into bold. I had never taken it before because I was like, I don't need that crap. And so I went to bold because it was like a last ditch effort for me. And again, I made the joking comment. I won't say that again because I realized I'm too close to that home. And it was not a good relationship. And I knew that like literally within weeks of moving, and yet I'm super stubborn, and I'd moved across the country. So let me tell you what, I was going to fix it, and it was going to work. So I went into that class, and I sold 7 houses while I was in the room. Like it was the coolest thing ever, because that could have been 700 because I had not sold anything for over a year. Bills were getting large. So I sold 7 houses, and I kept going. So the short version of that story is that I kept going back. I took bold 15 times. I'm a very slow learner, and I did that in 4.5 years. By my 3rd year, I'd closed over 100 transactions in a year, like over 100 transactions within a year. Now, my best year in 8 years of California was 24 closings. So it was a little bit of an improvement. And my 2nd year, I started making more money than I had ever made before, again, with a fraction of the price. And I do have a big life today. So that not proper relationship ended. And I am now married to like the most fantastic human on earth. And we have adopted 6 children. over the course of 3.5 years, which for the record is a lot. That is a technical measurement of that. Thank you. And, so I went, Gary Keller says something a lot. And I know a lot of you have been around long enough to hear this. You're never more than 5 years away from anywhere you want to be, from any goal you want to hit. And I am walking proof of that. I literally walked into that room in 2014 with not $1 left in my name. I put that crap on a credit card. I did not have money to pay full. And 5 years later, I was an MRE agent. I was married. I had 3 of the kids 5 years after that. I was just becoming a bold coach. So all of that stuff happened really quickly. And so fast forward to today, I have the 6 kids, one of which is a baby. They're a lot of work. I don't know if you guys were aware of that. And they don't sleep all. So like we adopted our kids. This is the first baby out of 6 kids. We would not have 6 kids if they were all babies. I can tell you that much right now. Woo! And he's wonderful and we love him. So y'all need to be in his class tomorrow if you feel that there is anything missing from your life. If your life right now, you're like, you know what, my business is great, my home is great, like I want for nothing and everything is amazing, then you don't need to be at his class. And yet if there's a gap in your world, the common denominator, no matter what you're looking to do or wishing you could do or whatever it is time. It's not that you don't have enough money, time fixes that. It's not that you don't have enough time, you control that. Like when somebody tells you, when you tell people that you don't have the time, and you got to remember this, like going forward, when you tell somebody that you don't have time for them, or you tell something that you don't have time for it, or you tell yourself that you don't have time to do something for yourself, you're simply not prioritizing what's on the other end of that statement. Because the difference between me and anyone in this room, or anyone in this room and like Ben Kinney or Jeff Glover that we talked about, is nothing other than the way that they use their time. And being transparent with you guys, like my education stopped at high school. I do not come from any sort of money. So I didn't have anything given to me. Like I had to go figure it out. So I do live a big life. So does your OP, FYI. I just outdid our own kids because I'm competitive. So time is your friend. And I said something earlier, and I'm going to say it again, because half of you probably weren't listening anyways. The more that you do in your business, the less you get to work. Like I do not even work 40 hours a week right now. And that is running a business and coaching bold. I mean, maybe if you factor in like time on a plane or something, okay, like you can get me on a technicality. And I don't say that to be like braggy or like I'm lazy. The more you do, especially if you run a database driven business, the more business that you do, the more business that comes naturally. So there's that alone. And then on top of that, the more you sell, the more you can leverage. And I know that leverage for some people is like a 4-letter word. I know that some of you want to maintain your hold on everything and no one can do it better than you. And you are special and wonderful and lovely and beautiful, except they can do it better than you. Everything is trainable. So I could not have my life without leverage. And if you've never leveraged any, like if you've never felt like you've used leverage before, like you're allowed to start small. I think we're in such a training company that I think some of us hear leverage and literally you didn't hear leverage, you heard full-time assistant. And then you're like, I can't afford that, or I don't have enough business for that. And that's not what leverage is. Leverage is anything that makes your life easier and gives you your time back. And then the first thing I ever leveraged, this is so silly. And it's the first thing I ever leveraged before kids, before anything. And it was hiring a dog walker. And I know that sounds really bougie and ridiculous, except I was single at the time because I'd gotten rid of the crazy person. And I was taking an hour out of my day every single day to come home because I do not work well from home. I need to work in an office. I was taking an hour a day round trip to come let my little tiny dogs with tiny bladders out so they didn't ruin my house. And so I got a dog walker because my coach encouraged me to, because they were like, what are you doing? Like you're working. I was complaining that I was working too much. And they're like, well, you're eating up an hour a day. Like, what is wrong with you? So I got a dog walker. And then from there, it was literally like I had seen the light. And now I'm like, I don't want to do anything that I can leverage out. Like, and I have like there's a cleaning person at my house right now because we have someone coming over for dinner and I'm keeping somebody employed. I feel great about it. I do not need to scrub a toilet ever. So and leverage within your business, there's so many directions to go. You could if you're in a place where it's time for an assistant or a second assistant or whatever it is, fantastic. If you're in a place where Maybe it's time to split an assistant. Maybe it's time to hire somebody virtually to help you because you want to save money. Maybe you just need a showing assistant because this market is bananas. Like whatever it is, there's room for leverage in your life. And I believe that most of you, if you still sat in the room and didn't get up and roll out, probably desire a little bit more in your world, whether it's personal, professional, maybe a mix of both. I'm telling you right now, leverage is your key. So I kind of give you the Reader's Digest version of who I am and what I am, because I could go through like the whole story. That is very boring. And if you ever want to do that, I'm happy to talk your ear off. And yet I live a big life. You get the picture there. What questions, knowing that I am an open book and there's zero judgment within me, what questions can I answer for you? And again, if you're on Zoom, literally just speak up. Don't raise your hand because I can't really see. So just talk and we'll answer. Yes, Nico.
So when
I'm going to come close to you because I don't know if they're hearing questions or not.
So
I'm
when
going to
did you
awkwardly
decide-
hover over you.
When did you go as a bowl coach? After how long in your business, and when did you feel you were ready?
That's a funny question with Amber in the room. So I did not feel that I was ready at all. In fact, I didn't know that I qualified at all. And I had gone up to take a bowl. It was my last bowl as a student. It was my 15th bowl. And I still lived down here. And she convinced me to go up there. And I liked her. So I went up there to Tampa. That's where there is, by the way. And I think it was step one. It was step one or step two, where after she was like, so why aren't you up here teaching this? This is ridiculous. And I was like, okay, what are you talking about? And I went I'm like, I'm not ready for this. And we just had these kids and my businesses. I'm like, this is not a thing. And as you will get to know her better, she gets her way. So I applied. I mean, I literally the next day, I was like, okay, I'll go on and I'll apply and nobody will call me. And by step 7 of that bold, I had passed the auditions to become a bold coach. So I wouldn't say that I knew I was ready because I didn't. And I just was being pushed. So I did it. And I'm so glad I did. So, I mean, there's honestly, like, there's your sign if you're ready. If somebody tells you that you are, like, people don't see anything that in you that isn't true. You might not see it. If they see it, it's true. And I just.
I think that's kind of willingness to be flexible and open and what it looks like to get there too. Because we even talked about merging our businesses for a hot
Oh, yeah.
and maybe it's going to be this or that. And you didn't. You said yes to everything. And just let it figure itself out.
Well, and that's the funny thing. Like I have used partway through the bold journey, like as a student, I gave into affirmations because I like to fight everything. And I gave into affirmations. And one of the ones that I still use all the time is I'm an opportunity magnet. And here's the reality that all of you sitting in this room, all of you on Zoom, there's opportunities surrounding you literally every second of the day. And yet most of us walk through life not seeing it, which is the reason that the average person in America makes 40 grand or whatever they make and never has anything exciting in their life. I don't mean to be harsh, and yet that's the reality. Like I see opportunity. And so I just kind of figured it out as I went. I moved because of bold, like all these things have happened. And so the only reason I'm in Florida is for a super horrible decision at the time. And yet I took it as a learning experience. And I think that's the other thing. Like if you want to succeed at a high level, you got to get really comfortable failing. Like all the time, like blubbering mess failing, because that's what'll take you to a big life. If you're comfortable all the time and everything always comes up roses for you, like you're not pushing yourself far enough. And I don't say that from a place of judgment. I say that from a place of wanting everybody to have a big, crazy life because it's really not that hard. I mean, so for you, and I think it's having questions. Like if that's something that is on your plan, it's talking to me, it's talking to her, it's getting introduced to the right people to find out when auditions are. Like it's that simple. So I feel like you asked the questions, and I'm going to poke at you later, but we can do that later. Yeah.
I will be.
Because we need somebody to lead the drive and create a completely Spanish bold. So, yeah, because it hasn't happened yet. Yes, ma'am.
When you first moved to Tampa, that was an expansion for you, kind of a reverse expansion.
It was like an accidental reverse, flip it expansion. So when I moved to Tampa, so this is how I work, FYI, because when she says I say yes, I say yes. We had our house, we had the 3 kids. We were living in a normal sized 3-bedroom house. We had plenty of space, and yet all kids were sharing one room. It was kind of a lot. So we put our house on the market to get a bigger house. And that was back before houses were selling in 10 minutes. And we had bought new construction, which normally is awful to then sell in a short amount of time. So we were like sitting there, and I got bored long enough that I was like, and I had taken the bold in Tampa, and I was like, oh, it's kind of cool up here. So one day I just told my husband, I was like, hey, we're going to move to Tampa. And then like a week later, we were under contract on a house. Not kidding. So I say yes. So the expansion was literally accidental, and she's not wrong. Initially, I was like, you know what, like I don't even want to do this anymore. I got real, and that's part of how I knew it was time to do something different, which took me to Bold. I was like, if I have to go on one more listing appointment, I'm going to stab somebody, and I don't know if it's me or the seller. It's going to happen though, and there will be blood. I was just done. I was done. I was really frustrated with building a team because I was doing it all wrong. At FYI, and so. Initially, it did, so we combined our businesses for like 10 minutes or so. And then I pulled back out, and not because they're not amazing, because I'm a control freak. And so I pulled back out, and I didn't want to give up what we had built. You know, when I moved away, we were doing over 100 transactions just out of the one office. And so we decided to keep that going. I was going to sell here and there. And then expansion happened accidentally because I'm open to opportunity. I had an agent that I had known for years. He was on a team. And we had been in Bold together multiple times. So we had a friendship. And I knew that he didn't love his team. And yet I also believe in culture. I never, if he would call me and ask a question, even though he didn't work for me, I would just answer it. That's all I ever did. He called me one day and he was like, that's it. I left the team. I already told them, and I don't really want to be a solo agent, but there's no other team I'd work for except for you. So do you want to expand? And I said, yes, because that's what I do. Our sixth child, the baby, literally, they called me on a Friday night and they were like, yeah, so your daughter's mom had another baby. Would you take it? And we were like, yes, without thinking about it. So that's literally how I operate. And life tends to work out pretty okay when you do that, though. So I don't know if that kind of answers or even answers yours. That's the real deal. Yes, sir.
But you also a team leader up in Tampa, or?
I was, not anymore. That's, God bless. That it wasn't. It was not. It's an amazing role, and it wasn't. It was not for me. I don't know what else to say about that. I love this company. I will never leave this company, and I'm glad I did it because I was asked multiple times, and I said yes because I say yes to opportunity, and then I said yes when Bold went back in person and left that opportunity for somebody else to succeed at. So I was. So while I was in team leader world, I was not selling at all. I definitely followed that model. The team kept going though. What else? What can I say? Yes, sir. Don't do a massive remodel. So again, we say yes. I feel like our life from the outside is literally insane, but to us it's just normal. We have 6 kids, and I look at the MLS every day because I sell homes like you guys do. And there was a 7-bedroom house for under $1 million, which doesn't exist. So so that's another funny story. I was good when I first saw it. And I was like, no, we had only been in our house for 10 months at that time. And I was like, no, we won't outgrow this anytime soon. And then they price reduced 3 weeks later because the house is disgusting. She's seen it. And so it was Saturday, and we were out running errands, and I just made a showing appointment without telling my other half and just pulled up to the house. And then we bought it. So it is literally, it's a 40-year-old time capsule. What am I learning? That everything takes twice as long as they tell you. Everything costs twice as much as they tell you. And the price will change 3 times when you're planning it. Because like we had 2 price increases while we were just planning our kitchen. So it's fun, and we're gonna live in this house forever because we're gonna have to. So, and we like it, so we will. What else?
But you're living there while you're remodeling?
Absolutely, with 6 kids and 3 dogs and 3 cats and 2 turtles and a parrot, and a mother-in-law that's there most of the time. So yeah, we're just gonna figure it out. Yes, sir.
So you started talking about leverage earlier, and we started with the dog. I mean, would you elaborate further? Like, what were some of the next things in your personal and in your business?
Oh my gosh, cleaning person for sure. Transaction coordinator, like when you're not ready to hire someone full-time, like your job is not to do paperwork. And I promise 9 out of 10 of you are also not good at it. Like if you're a good salesperson, you're not great at paperwork. They don't go hand in hand. So get that off your plate. I hired a part-time assistant first. I honestly, to be honest, I don't really recommend that as your first hire. It's what I did. It helped at the time, and then I kind of scrapped it. So that's the other thing. So when that agent reached out to me about expanding, I literally just started my business over, I feel like the actual structure of it. I got rid of all of the agents, like I got rid of everybody and started with a different mentality and a different plan. That doesn't answer your question. I'm just going back to something I forgot to say. Leverage is anything. Leverage is systems. Leverage is giving into command that free thing that you have because you're part of this company. And you say that it doesn't work because the last time you logged in was a year and a half ago and they update it 400 times a day. I have a $60 million team that runs 98% on command. The only thing we use differently, we use a program called CTE to track all of our numbers because command isn't as detailed as we need. And command still, and they're going to fix it soon. It doesn't connect super well if you're in more than one market center. Other than that, our businesses run out of that. So, and I don't care if you use command or you go pay for something, like use a system. Like, so systems are leverage, models are leverage. Having a listing appointment, like a listing presentation that you use, that's leverage. If you can take a listing in 30 or 40 minutes as opposed to an hour and a half, is that not leverage? So you got to understand, leverage is not always about like paying someone money to do something. And yet I would remind you, like, you all have $1 per hour wage. And if you're newer, maybe it's not that high yet. And yet if you're a producing agent, even a modest producing agent, it's pretty high. So if you're doing an activity that you could pay somebody less to do than that hourly wage, why are you still doing it? Like what? And if you want to know about leverage, like she is the queen of leverage, to be quite frank. I mean, I do okay. And yet she really understands leverage at a high level. Like if it is less than your $1 an hour, now here's the catch. You have to be purposeful with that. If you're going to leverage something because it's less than your $1 per hour wage, then you have to either take the time that you got back to go earn more money to keep that truck moving along, or it's purposeful that you straight up just wanted that time back and you're financially in a position to not need a financial return on the investment. So you got to think about it. But I mean, like everything is leverage. It's just that most of you are using yourself as your leverage, and it's exhausting, and it's why agents burn out. Yes.
Yeah, most successful people, they're successful because they buy time. You buy time by getting leverage. The more leverage, the more time, and then you can either use it to get more return on your investment for your time, or just to have more time.
Yeah, well, and it's true. And the other thing is, like, it's allowing coaches into your life. And if you're a brand new agent, that might be a PC coach, it might be a mentor, it might be just an accountability buddy. I don't care what it is. It's allowing people to push you and help you grow, because we all naturally shut down. And you've got to have somebody that's pushing you. Like if you're looking to achieve something more, this is the way I look at coaching. If you're looking to go somewhere or do something that you've never done before, how do you expect to get there? Unless you have someone to guide you and help you. Like you would not drive across the country just winging it. You'd put some addresses into your GPS or into your phone. So coaching is the same way. And again, we hear coaching and we think maps, $1,000 a month. That is not the only way that you can insert a coach into your life. There's productivity coaching. There's all sorts of other companies. There's group coaching with maps. There's breakthrough coaching, because that's another thing. Like I would have never, that's why I kept going back to Bold. Like I did more every time I was in that room for 2 months at a time. And so really, and if you look back at the history of my business, it was very sporadic because I would get in and go crazy. And then a month later, I'd be like, that's exhausting. And I don't want to do that stuff anymore. And then 2 months later, I'd go, oh, okay, I'm going to go back to class. Like keeping yourself in an environment of growth and productivity, surrounding yourself. But like, if you want to go make $1 million, don't spend all of your free time with somebody who makes minimum wage. And I'm not saying you cut those people out of your life like a heartless, like robot, like just don't, be careful where you invest your time and your energy. If you're around successful people, you will be successful. If you're around people with too many children, you will outgrow their family. So who you surround yourself with and the environment that you put yourself in is so imperative. And I know that we hear that probably almost every day. I just don't know that we always actually walk the walk. What else? Yes.
I think a lot of people have they have a mind block on that coaching.
Oh yeah.
To be honest, I have in the past as well. And I had one of the best coaching sessions ever that made me totally changed my thinking last week. And when I texted him afterwards and I said thank you, he came back with this. This is what he said, and this is so true. I couldn't believe the way he said it. He said, a majority of our calls will be oil changes and tire rotations. There will be a couple of conversations that we can look back on that will convert the line item from coaching as an expense to an asset. Stay with one.
That's awesome.
I'm like, wow, that just like, I mean, the call was amazing, but that kind of like, because I was.
Because not every conversation feels like $1,000 conversation, but it's a relationship and it's a process. That's amazing. I saw something today that really hit me, and it just said, be stronger than your strongest excuse. And again, I go, if you think of the most successful people, especially within our company, they all came from like awful. Like if you know Gary Keller's backstory, that guy has been through it. He was not born a billionaire. And he's had a pretty messy life in the first half of it. If you look at somebody like Ben Kinney, who a lot of you, if you've been around long enough, you know who he is. He was homeless. Craig Goodliff, who started Cyberbacker, lived in his car for years. Like the most successful people, it's a mindset and it's a choice and it's believing. And when all those stupid little voices come into your head with excuses, it's being powerful enough to pass through them. So, anything else?
Warren, this is Joe Cotto. I'm in
Hey,
Zoom.
Joe. Hey.
So I just want to say thank you for coming. Thank you for giving the class. It's been great for me.
I appreciate that. It's good to hear you. I wish you were here in person.
Me too.
Very, very good.
Just taking care of some health issues.
Well, good. Well, you get better.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? When no one from Zoom has spoken in over an hour, it sounds like the voice of God coming in. It's a little. Anybody else? All right. Well, I appreciate you guys. For those of you that have questions and don't like speaking in public, I don't have to run out the door at this moment, so I will hang out a couple minutes. I appreciate your guys' time for being here and you're participating with me, and go out and get your unfair share, please. All right.